This is Career Composer. I'm Erin, and I'm helping you, professionals under 30, navigate your careers with a music-themed twist. I'm giving you the job search and career advice you need to get that job, but we'll also talk about music, how to balance our personal and professional lives, and figure out what we're meant to do. Ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Career Composer. My name is Erin Ahart. I'm a full-time career coach. I thought I would kick us off today by sharing some podcast and career updates. First, I am so excited about our new Ask Erin series. This is a chance for you to call in, ask me any career-related question that you have, and I will give you free career advice. I bet that so many people are asking and wondering the same exact thing that you are, so I really hope that that encourages you to call in and take advantage of Ask Erin. Secondly, in the show notes below, you will see a link to my free job application tracker. I mentioned this in a previous episode called How to Job Search Fast, and I really create all of these resources with you all in mind, knowing that a lot of you just need a way to track how you're getting your applications out there, who you're following up with, which job applications were successful in getting you that first round interview. It's really just helpful for getting those data points and understanding what's working and what's not, so you can go back to the drawing board and continue to adjust. Again, I hope that you find these resources helpful and check them out in the show notes below. But a couple other updates. In today's episode, we're of course talking about how to make work more fun, but you'll also hear me talk about something called job crafting. In my own career, I'm currently using this strategy to grow professionally for myself, and I'm really excited for you all to hear examples of how I'm job crafting in my role, because I'm growing in my career right alongside you. I'm also Gen Z, so can't wait for you to hear some examples of what's going on in my own life. Let's get into the episode, and remember that you can find everything that you need in the show notes below, and remember to follow us on Instagram or other social media accounts, and let's get into it. Today's episode is inspired by the Christmas movie Elf, and this is the best Christmas movie of all time, in my opinion. Everyone knows that scene where Buddy's working in Gimbals and his boss says, "Why are you smiling like that?" Buddy says, "Smiling's my favorite." And then his boss says, "Make work your favorite." As much as we all would love to make work our favorite, sometimes we're really just not feeling it. When you're not feeling it, you do have options. So you can leave your job, or you can do a couple other things. Quiet quit, so mentally check out. Quiet crack and let the dissatisfaction consume you. Or you can do something else, which is called job crafting. There are so many ways to make work more enjoyable, but I found that one of the best ways to make work more fun is to switch your mindset from thinking, "I'm doing this job for someone else," to instead thinking, "I'm doing this job for me and my goals and to better myself." So what do I mean by that? I've learned that in almost every job, unless you're in the operating room or doing something where other people's lives are on the line, almost every job offers opportunities to do something called job crafting, and you should definitely add this word to your career vocabulary. So what is job crafting? Job crafting is taking small steps to mold your job into the job you want, and this could happen on a large scale, like legitimately changing the core functions of your role. But it's more likely that this will happen on a small scale, where you tweak certain aspects of your job to serve you and your goals while still doing what you were hired to do, knowing that you're still getting paid to do your actual job. We're just tweaking them a little bit. Job crafting is the perfect way to make work just a little bit more enjoyable and use your role to directly support your own professional growth. I'm going to split this episode into 3 parts. 1 is how to job craft in a corporate setting, so in your traditional 9 to 5. 2, we're going to talk about how to job craft in service and part-time roles. And then 3, we'll talk about how to reap the benefits of job crafting when you really feel like there's no wiggle room for you to tweak your work or the way that you do it. Ready? Let's go. So let's start with job crafting in a corporate setting or in your traditional 9 to 5. The first step and the most important part of job crafting is knowing what you do want to do. You're thinking, okay, so I know I'm not loving my current job, but I want you to think about what you do want, because that's the fun part. Your job is a useful tool that you can use to move towards your goals. And to use this tool to your advantage, you want to get clear on what exactly that goal really is. The second thing I want you to think about is whether your real long-term goal, what you actually want to be doing in your career. Think about whether that goal is related to what you currently do or if it's not at all related to your job right now. If it is related, it's time to start brainstorming how you could switch up or elevate what you do at work to get more experience in the area that you're trying to grow in. Or how could you take ownership of tasks and projects that boost your resume when it comes time to apply for the roles that you really want? What can you put your stamp on and brag about when it comes time to interview for future roles? So what are some examples? And this is where I'm going to share some examples from my own career and how I'm currently job crafting in my current role. Early in my career, obviously, I knew I wanted to start a podcast. And 5 months into my current role, I shared this with a senior coworker. I just wanted to see how it would land and see if I would get support for doing this and potentially starting a podcast at the organization that I work for. And to my surprise, this coworker loved the idea and actually wanted to get in on it and start the podcast with me. After I got support from somebody else, I brought this idea to my boss, and I brought this to my boss during a more relaxed period when things weren't as busy in my role. And I explained that I had time in my workday to start a new initiative. And instead of deferring to my boss, asking what they would like me to do with this extra time that I have, I made the case for how a podcast could move the organization forward and then explained my reasoning. I got a yes, and my coworker and I actually started the podcast at my university. So that's one example of how I kind of crafted my role, brought a new initiative to my boss, and that initiative was approved. Here's another example. I've been really interested in gaining more instructional design skills for various reasons, and I didn't have the experience using the technology that I knew I would need to gain those skills. And the technology is called Articulate Storyline, something I needed to do in my current role already. This was already a task on my plate that I knew I was going to need to execute, was creating career guides for our students so they could have visual examples of resumes and cover letters. Instead of just creating these guides in a PDF format, which I think is what people expected from me, I shared with my manager that I had this goal of learning how to use Articulate Storyline, and I also shared that I had already gotten permission to use the university's license to use this platform. So I got permission, and then again, I got another confident yes from my manager to go ahead and create these guides using this instructional design platform. Another key part of this was that I shared I thought this platform would help students to learn the information better in a self-guided, self-directed module kind of format. It was also solving a problem that existed. We'll come back to that later. What I want you to take away from these examples, especially in the second one, where I'm using a platform to elevate something that I already had to do in my role. With job crafting, it's not always what you're doing that could be changed, but it's how you do it. On my own resume, I could share that not only did I initiate a new project, but changing how I executed it improved the efficiency, accessibility, and the quality of the result. That is so impressive to any future employer, and it helps you grow where you are. Now, I mentioned a couple of things in the examples that I gave you guys that I believe are what led to a yes from my manager in implementing these strategies. You don't always need permission when you're job crafting. Sometimes it can happen behind the scenes, but especially when we're early in our careers, we're young professionals and we're still building our professional reputations at work, I think it's really important to communicate specifically with your direct supervisor. The first thing that I believe was helpful that I did in these examples was I ran my podcast idea by a coworker first. It's always great to get another person's perspective, see if this is something that they think could potentially be supported. They might also have additional knowledge of the organization if they've been there longer than you to know if this is something that maybe there's potential it could be approved, or no, there's no way someone tried that already kind of thing. It also just really gave me the confidence and support that I needed when pitching this podcast idea to my manager. The second thing that I did was I made sure that I had extra time in my day to support the new initiative that I was pitching. This isn't always possible, but one thing you could do is you could start tracking your time throughout the week so you know how much time you're devoting to your tasks throughout the workday. If you realize that your processes are not efficient or that you could have a greater impact spending your time on something else, that gives you data and leverage when coming to your boss and pitching a new idea that's hopefully going to solve a problem. If you come to your boss and say, I have an idea that would make my work more efficient, or that would have a greater impact on the department or the company or the organization, your boss is definitely going to listen to you, especially if you start with that. And one final note is that ideally, your ideas should be realistic and they should not interfere with the core functions of your role, especially as an early career professional. Something else I considered before pitching the podcast to my boss was that it was going to be a low lift project. Podcasting is not expensive. It wasn't overly time consuming because I had already had these skills outside of work, and it didn't put anything else on my boss's plate. This was all me and my coworker. It was just something extra that we were doing that could only help people. When you pitch your idea, you need to get your manager on board. So these changes that you propose as part of your job crafting strategy should support your work and the company's mission overall. If the idea that you're pitching in no way aligns with the company's strategic vision or strategic goals, then they're probably not going to go for it. Always ask yourself, does this make sense? And is this feasible? Something else that the same coworker has always said to me is, when you pitch a new initiative, don't pitch something in search of a problem. Find the problem first, and then job crafting can help you come up with ideas and initiatives that help you solve the problem that already exists. Job crafting is intended to make your job more fun. You're pitching ideas to your boss. You're tweaking your role slightly to change either what you're doing or how you're doing it. So that way you're doing something that hopefully you enjoy or that helps you grow in the direction that you want to grow in. But at the same time, it solves a problem for the company. You're balancing what you want to do, but again, you're getting paid to do your job. These two goals should hopefully be aligned. And so it is really helpful if your long-term goal is somewhat related to what you're doing in your full-time job right now. So how should you approach this conversation with your boss? Again, we're still in the first part of this episode. We're talking about how to handle this in a corporate setting. And right now we're talking about job crafting if your job is somewhat related to your long-term goal. But how should you have this conversation? In a traditional job, you likely have a weekly or a bi-weekly one-on-one with your direct supervisor. This is an excellent time to have this conversation. Or if you have a quarterly review period coming up to check in on your progress, then you could wait until then. A quick note, if you're bringing this up during your review period, job crafting doesn't work if you are not completing your actual job duties. I know that probably sounds obvious, but from your boss's perspective, they're going to think, well, if Erin isn't performing well with her normal job duties, then why would I let her make a change? She needs to focus on XYZ. It's always best to just do well as best you can. Establish a great reputation for yourself in the beginning stages of your role. And then that's where job crafting comes in. When you're starting to have new and better ideas, you want to grow in different ways, then that's when you approach these conversations with your manager. If you know you're doing a good job, you've been in your role for at least a couple months, I recommend doing this during your next review period or your one-on-one. You come to your boss and say, I've been thinking about my goals at this organization. You want to sound really excited and positive. I would love to check in on these goals and discuss additional ways that I can develop professionally. Something I would like to gain more experience in is XYZ, and I have some great ideas for how I could incorporate this into my role. And I really believe that this will have a positive impact on, the company or the project. This is also a really good time to briefly mention the problem that you're solving to your boss by implementing this new initiative. And then you could ask, would now be a good time to discuss this? Your manager is going to say, sure, absolutely, especially if you're pitching this idea as a solution to a problem. So now it's time for you to share your idea with your boss and ask for their thoughts. If your boss says no, you don't need to give up yet. You still want to gain experience in this area. So don't shut down quite yet. Thank them for their feedback and then continue to ask if there are other ways that you can gain more experience in XYZ. And if you have a good manager, they might actually have even better ideas or, be really excited that you're coming to them with ways that you want to develop professionally. And they're going to encourage you in that. Also, you're never using the phrase job craft when you approach your manager, because that phrase is really self-serving. Yes, it's a popular term in the career world, but again, you're pitching this as you solving the company's problem. It's not self-serving other than you're trying to grow professionally so you can be a better asset to the company. If you're a Gen Z professional looking for answers to your career questions, this is for you. I'm launching a new series on Career Composer called Ask Erin, where you can call in and get free personalized career advice in exchange for sharing your story on the podcast. No question is too big or too small and can help someone else who's probably wondering the same exact thing. And you can stay anonymous. Email careercomposerpodcast@gmail.com to get started. Just use the words Ask Erin in the subject line. If you have a question but don't want to come on the podcast, you can still email me at careercomposerpodcast@gmail.com, and I might just answer your question in a future episode. Let's get back into it. Now, what if your career goal is not related to your current position at all? If this is the case, it's a lot less likely that the way you likely want to job craft is going to make sense in your current position. Remember that this whole job crafting thing has to be feasible and it has to make sense. Now, the goal is to find ways to increase your productivity at work so you get your job done faster, because guess what that does? It frees up your time in your day that you don't need to tell anyone about. You don't need to tell anyone that you've cracked the code to being more productive and doing great work in a shorter amount of time. And so now you have this free time. You don't need to tell anyone about that. You can now use this time to work towards your own goals. I'm a really productive person in general. And so naturally, I've freed up about 45 minutes every single morning that I can use to work towards bettering myself. I'll get to work. Maybe I've packed my breakfast, brought it with me on public transportation. I'm eating it. I'm getting acclimated, checking emails. And then I'm using this extra time that I have in my day to listen to TED Talks or podcasts from experts in the field that are actually helping me grow. And when you free up this time, you're not gaming the system. You're not using your employer. You're never spending hours during the workday doing something that's completely unrelated to your role. I trust you guys, use your best judgment, but you're never spending more than 30 to 45 minutes per day on your own endeavors because, again, you're getting paid for your job and to do your actual job. You're getting the job done and you're getting it done well. You're not being sloppy with your work. You're finding ways to be productive. And as you get more comfortable in your role, you'll naturally increase your productivity. By increasing your productivity and freeing up 30, 45 minutes of your workday to work on your own goals, you're investing in yourself, but you're also investing in your energy and your happiness so you can keep doing a great job and showing up at work and also move closer and closer to what you really want. In this extra time that you save, you could complete online trainings and certifications through LinkedIn Learning for free with a library card. You could enroll in an online course, watch YouTube videos, or listen to podcasts to learn a new skill. Do your own independent project or you do your own research. These are all ways that you could use your extra time to better yourself. And this is a part of job crafting too. We've now talked about 2 ways to job craft and make work for you in a corporate setting or in your traditional 9-to-5 job. But what if even that seems impossible? If I had to guess, that probably means that the nature of your work is extremely hands-on. If you're in a customer service role or an extremely hands-on role where you can't really think about anything else besides what's right in front of you, then what you're doing is storing up energy to think about your goals and work towards them once you get home from work at the end of the day. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I know this is probably not what you want to hear if you're in a service job that you really can't stand right now. But sometimes it's actually harder when your day job is related to what you want to do and those goals that you're trying to work towards, because you don't have the energy to keep doing it when the day's over and when you get home. If you do have the ability to ideate and think about next steps while you're working, that's the dream. For example, I worked at CVS for 6 years from the time I was 16 all through college. You guys, you know I'm a music person, and I would actually write song lyrics on the back of CVS receipts when I was at work, and then I would copy them in my notes app on my phone at the end of my shift. And then by the time COVID hit, I had a whole album written on these receipts that were then copied into my notes app. So I had all that work saved up, and then I recorded that album. That was my COVID project. Having my own little secret and something that I was secretly working towards, while not really compromising what I did as a cashier at CVS. And yeah, even working at CVS was more fun. If you're a driver, you can obviously listen to podcasts and audio versions of YouTube videos to learn new information. I can't tell you the amount of times I've gotten into the back of an Uber and they were listening to a podcast episode about self-improvement. Yeah, you can absolutely do that if that's you. Or if you're driving, I'm going to use that as another example. You could turn on your voice memo app and then you could talk to yourself. It feels weird in the moment, but record ideas that pop into your head. So that way later you can come back to them and then use them to work on something and work towards your goals when you get home. The reason why I love this topic of job crafting is because there are opportunities everywhere you look. Everywhere. I'm an extremely action-oriented person. I hate sitting and waiting for something when I could just spring into action and do it myself. You just have to be motivated and creative enough to seek these opportunities out and then put those goals into motion and take that action, whatever it is. No matter what, you can always be taking steps to improve yourself and the effort won't be wasted. In closing, work becomes so much more fun when it's for you and for your goals. I'm addicted to job crafting now. It can feel like such a fun challenge. Now you're flipping the script and you're saying, How can I use this job as a tool to better myself and work towards my goals? You can be selfish about it. When you cross over and start to take action for you, you will think, honestly, the job wasn't so bad after all. I made the most of it and I used that time to make strides in my life and career. When work doesn't feel like your favorite, you have options. You can quit, you can quiet crack, or you can job craft. And you guys know which option I'm going to tell you to choose. I hope this episode was helpful and have a great day, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.